In 2014, one of the best science fiction horror TV shows of the decade would arrive, The Strain. The Strain tells the story of an evil being named the Master attempting to release his strain, which turns humans into vampire-like beings so that they can overtake planet Earth. There's quite a bit that can be said about this excellent show. It has an awesome cast, terrific storylines, and also I think with the right number of seasons, which was 4. In this review, I'm going to break down each season separately, and we'll see why this was one of the best science fiction horror shows of the 2010s. Now, season 1 begins with a plane landing at JFK Airport, and all the passengers are dead, except 4 people. CDC Dr. Ephraim Goodweather, who goes by F, is called in, and it soon becomes very obvious that something very strange happened on the plane. I'm going to skip over quite a bit here, but soon enough, F and his assistant Nora team up with others to try and exterminate these vampire-like beings. Now, there's an excellent cast of characters they join up with, including Abraham Satrakian, a man who has hunted the Master his whole life. Another individual is Dutch, a computer hacker, and also Fett, a rat exterminator. In addition to them, we're treated to excellent characters on the other side too. There's Eldridge Palmer, a man who plays one of the richest men in the world trying to cheat death and help the Master carry out his plan. Of course, we can't forget Thomas Eichhorst, the Master's right-hand man. Now, technically, he's actually not a man. He's a Strigoi or half Strigoi, but he was a former Nazi and he now serves the Master. Both characters and actors were excellent for this. In this. As mentioned, there's several good things about season 1. We already mentioned the cast, but also just the Strigoi and the special effects in general. Rather than going for just some bland, stereotypical zombie or vampire, the writers really add some cool things. The Strigoi have a stinger that extends about 4 or 5 feet or so, which actually makes them a formidable opponent, unlike zombies from a TV show like The Walking Dead that are just walking around, easy to kill. Also, they have this same consciousness, collective consciousness, so if someone gets turned, the Master gets access to all his or her thoughts, really turns into an interesting angle in the later seasons. Now, season 1 focuses really on the initial outbreak in many of the main cast of characters coming to terms with what is really going on. Season 2 is pretty much a continuation of Season 1, yet the group begins to strategize much more. In addition to this, we're introduced to a tough-minded politician named Justine Feraldo, played by Samantha Mathis. Unlike so many of the corrupt bureaucrats bending to Eldridge Palmer and the Master, Feraldo is no nonsense, and her community is beating the Strigoi. In sum, she's another solid addition to the show until she dies in season 3, but still she was a great call in this show. Season 3 was another excellent season and really follows much of the same storyline as 1 and 2. There's some small changes among the cast and dynamics, such as Dutch and Dr. Ephraim Goodweather bonding, and also the half-human, half-Strigoi named Quinlan joining forces with the group and plotting against the Master. The season had some great episodes, such as the episode on the Battle of Central Park, one of the better episodes in the whole series. The series finale, or the season finale, wraps up with Quinlan pinning the Master in a silver and lead plated box. The group is ready to drop the coffin to the bottom of the ocean when suddenly a blast happens. The casket opens and the Master blows away, ultimately escaping. Now, back at the Empire State Building, spoiled Zach, who's Ephraim's son, angrily sets off a nuclear bomb after F kills his mom, who's a Strigoi working for the Master. There's a lot that can be said about Zach, his role, and whether he got too much screen time and played too big of a role. Regardless, I think Ephraim sums it up well in season 4 when he says, "I'm not sure if I want him to be alive. I mean, if your son is a mass murderer, does he deserve to live?" Season 4 has much more on this. It opens up on a much more somber note than the other seasons. The humans have basically lost at this point and work for an organization called the Partnership, which is ran by Strigoi and ultimately the Master. To make matters even worse, a nuclear winter is blocking the UV rays, and the Strigoi are now able to go outside without harm. I have to say, pretty solid writing here, putting that bomb in there just for the nuclear winter. That said, humans at this point are basically just either being used for breeding or feeding. Still, though, the group, they're resilient. Fett and Quinlan are trying to get a nuclear bomb to kill the Master because they learned in Season 3 that the Ancients were killed by a nuclear bomb. Ephraim is still fighting the good fight, heads down to Philly. Dutch and Abraham Satrakian get captured and eventually escape. Now, the first 5 or so episodes, I have to say, it was a little bit disappointing that we didn't get to see the group together on screen more. They basically meet back up around episode 7 or so. But at this point, we're treated to a fantastic episode and really some terrific writing. The Abraham Satrakian versus Thomas Icor's battle. Now, for much of the season, Abraham Satrakian, he's not himself, in bad health. After being through vigorous experiments by the Strigoi, he clearly is not himself nor has the strength to beat his nemesis, Icor. Yet in the final minutes of Season 8 of that episode, Satrakian battles Icor, loading himself up with rat poison and poisoning Icor, essentially killing himself, but just willing to do it so he can take out Icor. It's an incredible ending and really clever writing. Throughout the series, Satrakian's life goal was to beat Icor and the Master to stop them, and with Icor gone, it's really a significant blow to the Master. Now, the next 2 episodes, we see the group basically planning to take out the Master. Probably one of the key things in these episodes is around Zach and F. F is faced with the impossible situation in that little Hellraiser Zach is loyal to the Master and not his father. F ultimately makes the right call, abandoning Zach and letting him know he's on his own. There's really a lot that can be said about this, but I think the writers went this route because there's no real redemption one can have when someone sets off a nuclear bomb. Should the writers have made Zach good and possibly had another evil human set off the bomb, I think they probably should have gone that route, but keeping Zach evil definitely didn't ruin the show by any means. That said, the final episode was pretty good, although I did think there were a few plot holes. If you recall, in the series finale, the group brings the Master deep underground with the nuke, and the idea is Fett can set off the nuke, and it'll keep the city, New York City, intact. Now, when the Master arrives, Zach is alongside him and heads down underground. For some reason, F jumps in the other elevator heading down instead of Fett. Fett was tasked with blowing up the nuke or setting it off. Next, the Master fights Quinlan, and it was a little bit strange because Quinlan was presented with that he could beat the Master. He had trained his whole life for millennia to beat the Master, and now he was finally ready to do it, but he doesn't do it, essentially. I thought that was a little bit of a plot hole there. Regardless, once he's killed, Zach disobeys the Master, to which F gets suddenly upset and bum rushes the Master. This was incredibly stupid and selfish from F. He, for some reason, thinks he's going to be able to take out the Master and is all of a sudden protecting Zach. I get it's his son, but he really has to think bigger picture here. If that nuke does not go off, humanity is wiped out. The Master, of course, easily takes F and then overtakes his body, leaving Zach, who suddenly had this change of heart. All this is incredibly inconsistent. Zach has no problem murdering that girl who didn't like him, and also setting off a nuke, but all of a sudden has this sudden change of heart when he sees the Master kill another Strigoi. What's even worse is the Master, for some reason, forgives Zach after Zach betrays him. Why would the Master do this? He doesn't need him anymore. F is essentially gone. Finally, we get the big twist at the very end. Zack decides to set off the bomb, killing the Master. Not sure why Zack all of a sudden became suicidal, but okay, it still worked. That said, strangely, the show, I still found that it had a satisfying ending. Many of the main cast died, and only Gus, Fett, and Dutch survived. That said, will we see a sequel to this fantastic show? I don't think so, at least not in the near term. However, I would have loved the ending for the group to drop the coffin of the Master out in the ocean. This would have allowed for someone else to pick up the story down the road, just pull up the coffin from the ocean, release it. The Master, once again, is still intact. They could have even brought back, say, 10 or 15 years from now, Kevin Durant, and he could have been like the new Abraham Satrakian, possibly bring back Dutch and Gus too. The sequel could pick up, once again, with someone finding the coffin, releasing the Master. Another option that they'll probably have to do if they want to resurrect this, which is very unlikely at this point, would be to have another ancient resurrected and have him be corrupt. However, it wouldn't be the same as bringing back the Master and continuing with that storyline. That said, this was a fantastic show. Check it out if you haven't seen it.